Hello, and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're making homemade, made from scratch pancakes. This is an easy recipe and it really does not take a lot of effort, but they are amazing compared to a store-bought mix. So what you're going to start with is 1.5 cups of flour. To this, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoons of salt, and then you're going to want to mix this up to incorporate everything together. You want to make sure that the baking powder and the salt aren't clumped in one area because that will give you a bad taste when you cook these. So with a spatula or whatever, just stir through it to make sure everything is mixed. Now you're going to add 1 egg. Make sure you break up the yolk before you stir it in. And then to that you're going to add 4 tablespoons of butter, which you have either brought to room temperature or melted in the microwave. Stir that through a little bit to make sure it mixes through. And now you're going to add 1 1/4 cup of buttermilk. Once you get that in your bowl, go ahead and mix that together so that way you're starting to break up the large lumps and getting everything incorporated. And now you're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You can use more or less of this if you want. I tend to actually use a lot because I like the flavor of it. And go ahead and stir this all through. The whole idea is to get the majority of the lumps out of the mix. It's not like you have to get them all out, but the larger ones you do, because some of the smaller ones will cook up as you are putting these on a grill or whatever you're cooking, like a griddle. But you need to make sure you break it up as much as possible. And if that means taking your spatula and pushing it down to the sides of the bowl or the bottom, go for it, because that's the best way to get it broken up. If you have a whisk, you could use that as well. That will help break up. I find that sometimes basically with a spatula you got a little bit more force behind it and you can push these things to the side and just mash the flour or whatever that's clumping together out. And you continue to stir until you've pretty much gotten this mix completely through. And you'll know at the point when you don't see any large lumps left over. This may take a couple minutes to do. So as you can see with my mixture, it looks to a point right now where everything has gone as far as lumps are concerned. Before you put the pancakes onto your griddle or whatever surface you're baking on, if you're using a pan, you might want to put a little butter in there to grease the bottom to make sure nothing sticks. Sometimes things say they're non-stick, but they are. Once you're up to temperature, you can go ahead and use a spoon or whatever you're putting your pancake batter on with. Just smear it out into a circle as you're going. And these are whatever size you want to make them. You can make large ones, small ones, whatever. Just remember, the larger it is, the harder it is to turn over once you're cooking it. So usually I do these 2 at a time so they're more manageable. Now as you get your form onto the pan and you've gotten everything out and you're letting these cook, periodically you're going to want to check underneath to see how dark it's getting. If it is getting dark, you know it's time to flip it. One sign that you know that it's actually ready to flip on its own is as you watch the top, you'll see bubbles coming up into the batter. And they're going to be bursting. When you see a lot of them, you definitely know it's time to flip, because that means the bottom part has cooked. So if you look at mine, you could see how the bubbles are starting to form on the middle sections and the edges of the pancakes. So just once you see this, check underneath. You don't want these to get too brown. You don't want to burn them. Sometimes it does take a few minutes before it gets to a point where you need to flip. So it's just basically a waiting game and making sure you're not getting too dark under. I suggest though when you go to flip these that you get a spatula that's kind of wide. They do have ones that are the super wide ones that are meant just for doing this, which is exactly what I'm using because it fits right underneath and it covers pretty much the whole bottom. So there's no chance that you're going to spill when you go to flip or anything's going to drip off. And when you flip them, this is what it looks like. Now the other side's going to cook, and this is going to be one of those ones you just have to keep checking it until it's browned. And once you have your first set done, then do it again until you use up all your batter. You can make several pancakes out of this depending on size. For the size that I was making, which were pretty decently large, I ended up with at least 6 pancakes that were really large. If you break the size down, you could probably make, as many as 10. But, it depends on what size you want. So once you have the batter on again, it's the same process. Wait for it to bubble, check underneath until it's time to flip it over. The best thing about this is you really can't mess it up unless you just don't pay attention to it. These are easy to make. They work so well, especially if you need something fast. It's one of those things that it's a good breakfast or anytime meal or a good snack if you wanted this. Just it's a matter of, getting on a grill, mixing up the batter really quickly and putting it on. Again, as you can see with these pancakes, they're starting to bubble, so it's at the point where they're about ready to be flipped. You will notice though as you go and the temperature gets higher on your grill or pan, whatever you're using, that these will get a little bit more even in color because the first ones are always the most difficult. And when you're done, it's really easy to either just use syrup with these with some butter, or you can get a little extravagant with the toppings and add other things. Most people just use syrup, that's fine. But as you can see with these, it's a matter of adding like some strawberry jam, some fresh strawberries, and maybe some whipped cream on top, and you got something amazing, which you could still use syrup around the edges, which is what I ended up doing with this one. I ate it, but it is really good, especially for fresh fruit on top. Amazing. And here you have it. Pancakes made from scratch at home. Probably one of the best things you're ever going to make, and you will enjoy it. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.